My name is Zach, and I'm the enterprise architect for Google in Southeast Asia. First off, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you some of this information on Google Apps, and specifically how it can be used in the education space. So I'll spend this probably about half an hour time to talk a little bit about some general information, trends, what we see in Google, and probably run through a couple of screenshots on how tertiary students can use Google Apps for collaboration. Okay, so before I really go into the specifics about the Google Apps solution, I'll just cover some trends information. This is a question which I like to ask educators, because the question is quite interesting, and the question is basically, who are your users? So for educators, the users are belonging to a different bunch, different generation. Typically for universities, your users will probably be in the age of 18 to 23, 24 years old. So probably these users will have different expectations about technology. And this photo that I have here is basically the picture of the MRT opening up in Singapore in 1990. So this is probably when your users are probably 1 year old. How many of you can guess what this is? It's taken off from Google image search. Hong Kong, right? Yeah. So your users will probably be about 7 years old when Hong Kong was being returned back to China. They probably don't know what life is on Hong Kong as a British colony as well. So this is, I think this is listed there as SARS. So they're probably about 12 to 13 years old when the SARS epidemic happened. They probably don't know what the whole hoo-ha is all about, why people were taking temperature when they have to enter into a building. So these are the group of users that you probably need to provide services for and provide education for. We call them, or rather, there's this interesting book. They call them by the name of digital natives. So this bunch of this generation of users are very different from myself, probably from a different generation. Somebody actually said this interesting quote, which is technology is anything that is invented after you were born, right? So for this group of people, the mobile phone, the internet are not technology. These are day-to-day things, right? They use it on a day-to-day basis. They don't think that this is technology. In the same sense, for myself, I don't think television or radio is technology, right? But internet was probably invented after I was born. So, internet is cutting edge. It's technology. It's I use it. Yeah. So the other question I normally ask is, this group of users, what do they want? So it's very interesting. The users actually do different things from my generation. The data that they create, whether it's pictures, videos, they like to broadcast it, right? They post it on their blogs, they share it on Flickr, and they post these videos on YouTube, right? They also are very into community, forums, social networking sites like Facebook. These are communities that they form online to share ideas, to share content with like-minded individuals. On the bottom side are very interesting aspects of what users actually want as well. They want services to be delivered at lightning quick speed, right? They have no patience for services that load in a couple of seconds. They expect things to be loaded in the browser in a couple of less than 1 second. And they expect to be able to access this content or this information anywhere, anytime, and probably from any device as well. So pervasive mobility is an important aspect as well. So in Google, what we notice is that the four aspects that we shared earlier cannot be handled by traditional enterprise technology. right? And in Google, we noticed that consumer technology will basically outpace the innovation that's being set forth in enterprise technology. So it's important to look towards consumers type of technology that is available, to look at what you can apply in terms of what you use on a day-to-day basis in enterprises today. So this is what I call Collaboration 1.0. Basically, I used this when I was still a student in NUS, almost 8 to 9 years back. Right? If there is a project that I need to work on right now, I will basically kickstart the discussion with my project team members. So let's say I have a project thesis to submit to a professor by the end of 2 weeks' time. So I create a version 1 of the document, and I will distribute this to all my project team members. So my project team members will then modify the version, right? Add in their comments. We do some track changes as well. And then I have to spend probably 2 hours to try to merge all those changes together in a single document again. And then, of course, the cycle repeats, right? I have to distribute the next version out, get comments, get consensus. Everybody has to agree that this is the actual document to be submitted to the professor. And then we will always get this kind of people that will submit their content or their document or changes at a much later date, right? So, for example, it may not be intentional. Rachel may be on MC for the past 2 days, and then he's not in tune with what is happening, and he submit a new change. So, what you notice is that I have to spend probably 1 or 2 hours trying to clear up the mess, communicate that with all the different people, and then come out with the new version again. So this is Collaboration 1.0, and it's pretty much the same way that we have been working on with different groups of people for the past couple of years, and this hasn't changed. In fact, it's getting worse because digital information is growing at a much more rapid pace, right? So so the pace of innovation, the pace of the amount of content that gets created over on a day-to-day basis actually is actually exploding, and we are also seeing the fact that once the information is created, trying to find that information is also a big challenge, especially in more in the education space, where the content actually sits on different silos, this sits on different systems. Okay, so in Google, we think that that's very old school, and what we try to do is to develop something that will work in today's environment, and that uses the Google Apps solution that I'm going to just run through briefly. So the Google Apps solution is something that we offer to educators and non-profit organizations for free. The Google Apps edition for education will comprise of the 5 or 6 components that you see here. On the extreme bottom right, where my cursor is, this will probably be familiar to you guys if you are a Gmail user. So Gmail is basically the email component that we offer to students and for faculty members, and currently this sits at 7.2 gigabyte of inbox storage, and is provided for free. What you see here is basically the Google Apps start page. So this provides a component that's very much like the iGoogle interface, where users can personalize their content with gadgets that appeal to them, that make sense to them. As part of the suite, we also offer the Google Talk component, the open protocol instant messaging client, And of course, we have our Google Calendar, the online calendar component that allows people to manage events and activities from using a web browser. Okay, this component up here is very interesting. It's known as Google Sites. It's probably the second last component that we added into the Google Apps solution. Google Sites actually came from a acquisition of JotSpot, which was providing a solutions for wiki for corporate institutions, and we have incorporated that as part of the solution offering for Google Apps. So on the right side, what we see here is also the Google Docs component, which is our online document editing suite of product that allow you to edit your documents. It also includes a lightweight presentation tool. It's what I'm showing right now. It actually sits within a browser and delivered through the power of the internet. Of course, we also have our spreadsheet editor as well within the Google Docs solution. So all this actually is being delivered to your users through the power of the internet on a browser. So there's no software that you need to install onto your PC in order to use the applications. Everything is delivered through the internet. What you need is a PC or a desktop or a laptop or even mobile devices with internet connectivity. Okay, so I'll probably just run through an example of how Google Apps can be used in the education space. So this will probably give you a better understanding of what the app solution is and how this is beneficial for both students as well as faculty members. So what you see here is the standard Gmail interface, very similar to what you have if you are a Gmail user in the internet world. What you'll notice down here is, of course, you have your username at the domain that you want. Instead of having at gmail.com, you can have it at nusedu.sg. So Gmail component can be customized to the domain that you have, and you have all the powerful features within Gmail: the ability to do threaded conversations, the huge mailbox size of 7.2 gig, and of course the powerful search interface, right? The interface to be able to find information when you want it, when you need it, quickly and easily using the search box here. And you may have noticed that we have a chat interface built in as well, so you do not need a separate instant messaging client installed in order for you to do chatting with your students or with your staff. So in this case, what we have here is actually a small window that opens up within the same interface that actually initiates a group chat between different people. And the scenario what we're showing here is, for example, a particular professor, Cheryl, has actually sent out an assignment for the students, and the students have just received the assignment on the email, and what they're doing now is chatting among themselves to form the project group, and then creating the appropriate assignment to be submitted back to the professor. Okay, one of the questions some people have asked me is down here on the sponsored links. This is optional on the Google Apps for Education. The domain administrator can choose to disable that if required. Okay, so down here you basically the students have sort of like come to a consensus that they will form a project group among themselves. In the new version of this particular application, you'll be able to do video chat as well. So if you have a built-in video camera within the PC or laptop, you can actually do a video conferencing between students, between staff and students as well. Okay, so instead of submitting the document back to the professor, what they have decided to do is in fact create a project site using the Google Sites component. So down here, these students have gone on to create a site with a couple of buttons, with a couple of click of a few buttons. They are able to create a simple website to be shared with different groups of people. This is basically the editor that we are using. As you can see, it's something that's relatively simple to use. As long as you are able to create a Word document, you should be able to create a site with a few clicks. Right? There's no fudgeting with HTML required or understanding of internet technology in order to use this component. Okay. So of course you can embed images. You can embed. You can even embed YouTube videos or Google Video as well. And later on, I will show you this example where I can embed a more interesting component, which is the Google Docs component, right? Okay. So after I've created the content, what I need to do is, you can see on the right side, I'm the owner. What I want to do is invite the project team members as collaborators. So just by going to the sharing tab, I can actually invite all these people as collaborators. Right. The permission use is actually relatively simple. If you are a collaborator, you basically can view and edit the website content. If you are a viewer, you can only view, you cannot edit the content. So this concept is very similar to Wiki, where different groups of people will be able to go in to the same content and modify the content to fit the requirement. Okay. Another thing that you can see here is you can actually publish it for the world to see as well. When I say anyone in the world may view this site, this means that you can publish this, and people can go to that website without having to sign in to see the content. Okay. So in this case, what they have done is actually invited the professor to come in and view the site as a viewer. Okay, so this is a screenshot of the calendar component again. As you can see on the top left, by clicking on the various components, I can go into the various components within Google Apps. So on the online calendar, what I want to do is, you can see down here, it's basically a combination of my own calendar as well as calendars from different course modules that I subscribe to. So this course modules calendar is actually published from a central system where the professors and the faculty members have access to the calendars. So the students will subscribe to the calendars, but they can only view the event, but they cannot edit the event. So there are owners of these calendars that can modify all these activities and events within these calendars. And this is pretty useful because, for example, if there is a rescheduling of the calendar event, or for example, there's a particular tutorial that got cancelled, the calendars can actually integrate with SMS to do alerts to the students as well. And we do this all for free as well. So in this case, for example, I have to look for a suitable time to do some brainstorming with the rest of my project team members. So based on this, I can choose to create an event. And I've invited all my other team members online. And I can actually view their personal calendar to look at what is available slot for me to schedule the meeting. Okay, after that, you can just send the event, and your users will receive the event in their inbox. So just now we talked about I want to brainstorm on this particular project that the professor has given me. So what I've done is used Google Docs to create a Word document, and then I would like to share this document with the different members. Again, you see the similar sharing mechanism that we use for sites being used here. Okay. So after that, instead of having to submit the document back to the professor, earlier I've actually shared the website with the professor. So it makes sense for me to just embed the document in the website. So with 2 clicks of a button, basically have embedded the Word document inside the Google Sites. And what you'll notice is that as Amanda, Chris, or Peter, or Jessica edit the document, the changes will be reflected online as soon as the changes are being made onto the website. So if you take this step further, what happens if you embed a spreadsheet, right? So Google Sites, Google Docs does come with a component as Google Gadgets, where you can embed visualization gadgets such as pie charts, trend graphs, motion charts, and other cool gadgets that you can embed. You can actually embed this, for example, this particular pie chart into the website as well. And this actually draws in content from a spreadsheet on the right side. So as and when you change the values within the spreadsheet, the content gets published and changed and reflected up in the site as well. So other kinds of cool gadgets actually include, for example, the ability to embed in Google Maps gadget as well. With 2 clicks of a button, you can actually reflect on, for example, down here, what we have seen is more in terms of preschool, or I won't say preschool, more like secondary school students learning on geography. They can actually put in, for example, the town of in Australia and be able to immediately see the location of these towns in on Google Maps. Okay, so this basically ends the demo that I have. Whatever I showed just now actually is accessible from a web browser, and in Google, one of our important principles is to make that information universally accessible, and one of the areas that we are focused is on mobile technology as well. So the email, the calendar, the docs, the sites that we have seen just now can be accessed from any web browser on smart devices such as the iPhone and the upcoming Android phone as well as from any client devices, right? It may be Linux or it may be Mac. I'm using a Mac right now. But the user experience is pretty much the same whether I'm on Vista or XP as well. Okay, so I think this slide basically just shows some of the objections to what I've just shown, which is basically the Google App solution delivered through the power of the cloud, or what we call cloud computing. And what we have seen is that there's no better time to move to the cloud because the barriers to adoption are basically falling away. A couple of things I'll just raise is the connectivity in Singapore, for example, is so pervasive. I can just, with a 3G mobile card, I'd be able to access my email from anywhere without having to look for a internet access or wireless access point. Also, for example, the user experience has improved tremendously because of advances in Ajax technology, and the speed of the JavaScript engine has improved so much that you can actually use the cloud computing services without having to install traditional client-server applications. Right. And this point on offline access is also important because in Google itself, we have technology known as Google Gears, where you can actually allow you to access some of these services without having connectivity as well. So for example, if I just disconnect right now from the internet, I would still be able to access or show this particular presentation because of the Google Gears technology as well. Okay. So that basically sums up the presentation. And there's some closing thoughts, which is basically your users are different, right? And these users have different expectations, and this basically poses new challenges. There's a couple of pain associated with traditional collaboration, and what we think as the solution is basically cloud computing services delivered in the form of Google App Solution. Okay, so is there any questions I can take from the floor on whatever I've just talked about? So if there's no further questions, I will still be here at the end of the session. So you have any questions, you have any comments or any other stuff that you want to share with me, I'll be happy to be here throughout until the end of the session. Right, thank you.